Greetings, YouTube. Peace, love, light, harmony, and welcome again. Thanks for tuning in. And today I'm going to be talking about, duality, polarization, and opinions. Well, first off, welcome to the world of the land of stuff and things and stuff and opinions. And where we all value what we value because we value it. So I'm going to start this off with actually talking about subjectivity. This is one thing that bugs me the most when I encounter with people, or when I'm playing games, or when I'm having an argument with somebody, or just simple debauchery or conversation with anybody, especially someone who's extremely opinionated or subjective. What is being subjective? I could say, hey, the wind is good. That is subjective. Why is this subjective? It's because the wind is, and the wind blows. It is neither good nor bad. It just is. So to be subjective is essentially to assign a meaning to it that doesn't necessarily have a meaning to it. So being subjective is when you assign a meaning to something, or when you value an opinion. And everybody is entitled to their own opinion. But what good does that do if I can't actually tell you what is and what is not without you basically superseding my entire perspective and just telling me that it's my opinion? When I know I've proven it, I have experienced it, and I have done with what I can with it to prove it. To prove something, you have to be able to repeat the testable results and essentially get the same results. And then it's proven. So if I do that for myself and I tell you, hey, this is my experience, but you tell me that it's my opinion, what is that? What is that? What is that? Is it my experience or is it my opinion? And then you can comment down below if you think that I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but what is. If not what we subjectively define what is. And that is essentially what we feed off of. What they send us, what they train our brains to go which way and what way, because there's a good and a bad. As above, so below. There is nothing new under the sun. So, what is polarization? What is duality? And why does it correlate with opinions? What is polarization? What is being polarized? Sports, foods, any kind of activity that you can think of, basically. Any opinion that you can think of. Anything that involves anything that's one versus another. That's an illusion. Everything is unity. There is no one versus another. That doesn't, no. Okay. The outside of me is on the inside of me because I perceive it in my brain. I see it with my eyes. The information goes into me and then I process it. Therefore, the outside is actually inside. So there is no separation. This is actually an illusion. And if you fall for the illusion, then you are more likely to have many more opinions. And why is this subjective? It's because you are not looking at what is, as opposed to what you think is. And like I said, you can comment down below, and maybe I think that is, and that's my subjectivity. See how that works? Maybe I'm biased, but to each their own. I try to be as least biased as possible in every single way. Some people might call that ignorant, but it allows me to avoid as much turmoil when it comes to polarization, duality, and opinions, because I don't want to butt heads with people. I don't care about being right or wrong. I don't care about who comes out on top. There's no advantage to being first. You just are the first one. That's it. If anything, there's more advantages to being second. I'll get into that into a later video. So polarization is essentially when I feed you the idea that mine is better than yours, or that yours is worse than mine. And why this just essentially creates turmoil, why this is actually like an argument in the making, is because it's essentially got your emotions worked up, because you have an opinion that you said cling to, and that is correlated with something that you resonate with. Not saying that that's a bad thing, but saying that if you essentially attach that and that's a part of your belief system or your BS, then by all means, you have essentially subjugated yourself to being subjective, as opposed to a true equalist will present the good and the bad about their argument, and the good and the bad about the opposing argument, because she recognizes that she is not a part of that dynamic. And once you have been able to separate completely from said dynamic, you are no longer working on the opinions or the stuff and things or the immediate gratification or value of what you assign the meaning to said thing. Instead, you are observing what actually is the full and full-blown truth, not filtered by your senses and not filtered by your opinions and not filtered by what you've been programmed to allow happen inside of you emotionally to create said argument in the first place. So this all comes down to essentially avoiding human nature in a lot of ways. Human nature is not always, we're real quick to like defend. Like if I say you can't or you don't, then it's automatically like, oh no, somebody whipped out a gun. And it's super easy to get into a real heated argument and a real heated opportunity that's not necessarily a positive outlook on either person, good or bad, right or wrong. There has to be a common denominator for how we seek the truth. And most importantly, a common denominator as to how we go about arguing or having our debaggles or differences of opinions. And there has to be some sort of common ground for our opinions to be malleable and able to change. Because if it's not, then you're just prone to turmoil. You're prone to emotional attachments to things that are. Instead, they are the way you think they are. They are the way you want them to be. So you see, you are now living in a reality or a matrix or a mindset or a belief system. You're not living in reality. And that's not a stab at anybody, and everybody has free will to do anything. It's just a way so you can kind of break down what polarization is and what people are doing when they polarize you. When you turn on the news and they tell you about all this negative stuff, you got all this turmoil in your head. It's like, oh, like on one end it's like you're sad or you're mad about said things that are on the news. They want that. They want you to have emotional content because of said bad news. A quick and easy way to get somebody hooked, give them some bad news. Give them some bad news just for a second, and then give them some good news. Boom, you got them hooked. They've already emotionally been involved. Now they have actually partaken in the content that is being available. It's just a simple strategy to get people hooked. And that's what they're doing. That's what we are doing. That's why it's good and bad. Because without it, a lot of things wouldn't be interesting. Just plain and simple. And with it, a lot of things can get you emotionally pent up and attached to things that aren't necessarily real or necessarily something that you can prove. And just the concept of information out there, there's so much information out there that even if it is real, you could never prove it because you've never been there the moment that it happened and all of said information absorbed. It's all filtered through perspectives and then opinions, and then it's polarized. through the media and through opportunities for people to essentially make money or get attention from something that's not even real anymore at that point, you know? It's like the difference between anime and real TV. There's things in anime you can't express as a real actor as opposed to in a real TV show. Like if I'm a real emotional, you're gonna think I'm super corny. You're just not gonna take it serious. You just can't take it serious. Whereas, like in anime, you can express things, the time and the energy and the purpose that's poured into said artwork. You see the difference. So it all comes back down to duality, and good, bad, right, wrong. Neither actually exists. Good is bad and bad is good. Why? Because it's a matter of perspective and subjectivity. If I'm born in a particular state and I'm rooting for a particular team, I'm the exact same person as if I was born in the other state and rooting for the other team. There's actually no difference between the two. We're still humans. We were born in a state. We're both rooting for a team. They happen to be opposing each other. So why get pent up about, oh, my team won, my team's better, oh, my team this and that, the statistics of this season. All of those are said distractions. All of those are said emotional contents that you're now hooked on. And all of those are essentially illusions that were never real to begin with. And the only thing that's real about it is, simply put, the players. The players are working out. The players are pushing their bodies to the limits. And we're failing to realize that part. That's why we love the fact that, well, some of us are failing to realize that part. You know, it's supposed to essentially inspire us to get on our physical attributes. Not necessarily to warp and cling us to who's winning and who's losing. And that's where essentially the problem kind of stems from, and why duality and polarization isn't necessarily... It's a healthy balance when you recognize it. But when you don't recognize it, you're all imbalanced, and essentially you're clinging on emotional content that you give value to things because you think they're right. Because you think they're right, as opposed to what is right. And that's also subjective. And it can only be malleable and valuable towards essentially what lines are drawn. And obviously there is a good and there's a bad. But the point is for you to separate the meaning and the thing that you give it power to. That way you can see the difference between the two. Because if I say, hey, you're being bad right now, but you're just defending yourself, you can see how if I'm defensive, it can create a turmoil and a cause and effect for us to jump into an argument. But if I'm not defending myself, then I'm letting you run all over me. And I'm not holding myself accountable to what I feel is substantial as a person, as a being, fair to said being I'm interacting with. So it's a give and take, quite literally. So it's all about finding essentially the detachment so we can find the common ground. And it's all about not only just having the conversation, but being able to move that conversation over and have a conversation about the way we're having a conversation. And that innate ability, a lot of people have lost that. And a lot of people have trained or have been trained for the emotional content of said attachments, opinions, dualities, polarization of why and how we have differences of opinions and perspectives. Because no one person's the same, everybody's upbringing's different, and every environment shapes people completely differently. But the fact of the matter is, we're all human. We all are basically walking plants, whether we like to think that or not. We take in sunlight, we eat food, we walk around, we do stuff. That's just the natural way of things work. I mean, at least most people. So, for the most part, that just is. That's not going to change. That's not an opinion. That's just it. It's not even a fact. I don't have to prove it. I can just observe it. It's an observation. But I could prove it, and then it becomes a fact. Or it's something that is an individualistic experience, and I've had a repeatable outcome. Now it's a fact subjugated into my experience. There's all these different words and terminologies that are broken down in particular ways that deter what is. And I hope that you can kind of break out of some of the ways that you have previously thought that things work, so you know how things are working. And hopefully this helps you. I hope that hopefully this frees you up from some of the limiting beliefs or limiting perspectives that you cling to. Because at the end of the day, all attachment is the reason of suffering. And we don't want to suffer. We don't want to suffer. I don't want you to suffer. I don't want to suffer. I don't want my loved ones to suffer. So I'm going to do the best I can to help them, help me, help us converse in the healthiest way possible. Even if one of us is wrong, even if one of us is angry, and even if one of us doesn't agree, that's fine. That's okay. You're entitled to your emotions. You're entitled to your perspectives. That's fine. I can't control that. But what I can control is how we both show up, or at least how I show up, and hopefully help the other person show up accordingly so we can have a common ground. So yes, polarization is a good and bad thing because it is polarization. It represents the good and the bad. And this world, this natural reality, naturally works with said rule. As above, so below. As within, so without. At the end of the day, there's what we know as a good and what we know as there as a bad. And obviously there's things that are super no-goes. We should never do. That we should not do the things that we wouldn't want all of society to do. And that's the way I've kind of learned about it. I can't remember where I picked that up from, but I know it's a particular logic and a particular, I mean, it might be Stoicism. It actually might be Stoicism. But essentially, don't do, if you have questions about your morality, if you have questions about what is right or wrong, don't think so much about right or wrong. Think more about, if everybody in society, if all of the people in America or the world, if all of the planet adopted this behavior for the rest of eternity, and this planet adopted that behavior, could you see that be a thing? Would you want that? Would you want everybody to do that thing that you're questioning if you should do or not? You probably should not do the thing that you feel that you wouldn't feel comfortable with the entire planet doing. And it's a pretty good line to follow if you're having trouble understanding what morality could be to you, if that makes sense. Because everybody's has a different little, but that's a good little basis to measure everybody and the things that you do when no one else is looking. So yeah, I hope that explains a lot. I hope you enjoyed this content, and you have a wonderful day. I wish you the best, and yeah, hopefully this helps you do some introspection work, and hopefully it actually improves your ability to have conversations and maintain healthy arguments with your peers and other people or your enemies. So you have a wonderful day, and I'm signing off. Thanks for tuning in, and yeah, see you next time.